The Needles area of Canyonlands National Park is located in the southeast section and gets far fewer visitors than the Island in the Sky district. This part of the park is well worth exploring though, as it has lots of history and some great sandstone formations that are known as the Needles and from which the park gets its name. My dad and I only spent a half day in the park and just focused on the short trails, but here's how we spent our time in the Needles district of Canyonlands, and you can see my full video on Island in the Sky in the description. From Moab, it's about 75 miles and an hour and a half to get into the park. I highly recommend stopping at Newspaper Rock on the way in, as it's right off the main road. Here is Newspaper Rock right here. They said that this records over 2,000 years of etchings. This rock has been used by many different people groups over the years and supposedly has 650 different rock art designs on it. I've seen many petroglyphs over my travels, but this is by far one of the most impressive. That is definitely a great stop on the way into the Needles area. You don't see something like that every day. From Newspaper Rock, it's about a 30-minute drive to the visitor center. This is an incredible drive though, with many rock formations looking like the southwest landscapes you've seen in the movies. We made it to our first stop in Canyonlands, the visitor center, before we start exploring. After entering the park, the first thing you'll get to is the visitor center for the Needles district. The visitor center is small, but it has some exhibits on the unique ecosystem of Canyonlands National Park and some of the early settlers. Here's the Island in the Sky area we were at yesterday, and now we are down here in the Needles. Pretty close, but a long drive between the two. We're gonna spend about 2 to 3 hours in the park on our way south. Our first trail is the Roadside Ruin Trail, which actually is gonna take us to one of these little granaries like we saw yesterday, which was pretty cool. It's a half mile. A lot of the trails have had these trail brochures where you can put 50 cents in, but there is no brochure here. If you really want to see this area, you're going to want to plan an entire day here. The two most popular trails are at least 8 to 10 miles to go out towards the Needles and the Slot Canyons and some of the arches, but we'll show you what to do with a half day if that's all you have. Most of these trails along the side of the road are relatively short at less than a half mile. If they had the brochure, I'm sure this would be a fun trail with families where you can learn more about the different things you're going past, but they didn't have it when we were here. There it is, little granary up in that alcove up there. If you want to see the granaries, that's definitely the easiest way to do it. The one we did yesterday was a lot more treacherous, but fun little family-friendly hike. On to the next spot. That's where the granary was, right there under that rock. From there, we headed out towards Cave Spring, which requires you to drive on a dirt road that was easily passable with a two-wheel drive car. This was easily my favorite hike in this district, and it's one of the most popular as well. Next up, we're doing the Cave Spring Trail to a historic cowboy campground. Let's see if this one has a brochure. Nope. Within 2 minutes of starting the trail, we're already at the old cowboy campground. Pops has always wanted to be a cowboy. How do you feel about living in this campground?
I think when you understand what a cowboy was, you don't want to be it so much.
Yeah, you don't want to be a cowboy anymore?
This is probably Cadillac cowboy living right here rather than out exposed.
This cowboy camp was fascinating as it's from the early 1900s and it shows what life would have been like in the Canyonlands area during that time. It's pretty cool that they've been able to keep it intact like this, and I hope it stays that way for future generations. Some more remains back here underneath this rock.
This is a primo location. I mean, more cave back there. You can stay out of the weather. This is pretty epic.
Pretty good cowboy home. This area has one of the only year-round water sources in this part of Canyonlands, which is why it was so popular for camping. This water source basically looks like it's seeping right out of the rock itself. My dad and I were both commenting on how long this shelf is. It's a huge amount of shaded area, lots of room to spread out. Pretty cool. This trail has 2 ladders that you actually have to take to continue on. I love when trails have unique elements like this, and it's fun to be able to climb these ladders and get to the top of the rock for some great views. There's ladder number 2 right there. Brings you out to this slick rock section. Another trail where we're following the cairns to figure out where it goes. After seeing Island in the Sky the day before, it's crazy how different these 2 parts of the national park are. Hopefully one of these days I'll be able to see the 3rd district called the Maze as well. Gotta keep your eyes peeled for the rocks or else you get lost from the trail. There's the parking lot coming back into view right there. The slick rock section's not too long and it's pretty easy to follow. There's a little bridge or arch right there. Oh, it's not connected. Almost a bridge or arch. After about 30 minutes, we were just about back at the car. It's a little bit low. Pops actually has to bend over for that one. That's the end of the Cave Springs Trail. That's an awesome trail with history, beautiful views, the ladders, seeing all these kind of like cave-like formations. Definitely don't miss this one. After finishing the short hike, we headed further into the park with a stop to see Wooden Shoe Arch. I have to say, it's easily recognizable as a shoe. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Our next stop was to drive out to Elephant Hill, which is the popular trailhead for many of the park's best hikes. Even though we weren't actually going to hike any of them on this trip since they're a lot longer than we had time for, we still wanted to see what it was like, and the guy in the visitor center said that there's some great views of the Needles on the way out. This is the end of Elephant Hill. That way is 4x4 and you need to have a permit to go up there, but it's a cool little parking area. Looks like there's some trails out here. This is where the most popular hikes to Chesler Park leave from, but it's about 7 miles, so we're not doing it today. This is the great access point to the Needles though, to get to Druid Arch or to get to some of the other popular areas. This is your hiking area. There's no reason to go all the way down to the end if you're just coming for the day like us, but you definitely should come about 1.5 miles in to get this view of the Needles, which is pretty great. We expected there to be good views at the end of the Elephant Hill Trail, which there definitely wasn't, so the best views on the road are to stop about halfway in when you get to the top of the small hill. From here you can really see the Needles area if you have a zoom lens or binoculars. This is our last short hike of the day. We're going up to Pothole Point. Pops is already going off trail, following the rocks. It's a pothole with a little worm in it. Looks like it's alive. Crazy. There is life in the potholes. As you're hiking this trail, be sure to stay out of the potholes, even if there's just dirt and no water in them, as you can damage the ecosystem. Also, you don't want to touch it because the skin from your hands can also damage the ecosystem. So just look, don't touch. As you're hiking this trail, be sure to look out in the distance. You can get some good views of the Needles from here. A whole bunch of places where there can be potholes out here. Some of them have water, some don't. This rock would literally have potholes everywhere after a rain. Pothole Point is an important and fragile ecosystem in Canyonlands. Basically, the eggs lay dormant for many of the life forms. Then when water comes in, they rush to finish their life cycle before it dries up again. It's fascinating to learn more about this and to actually see it in action. Pops found a big one out on the point right there. Crazy to see water like that in the dry, desolate desert that surrounds us. As we explored more, we saw 2 large pools out at the end of the rocks. I didn't see any life in these pools, but since I saw life in the smaller ones, I'm sure there was life in the larger ones as well. That was a pretty fun little trail. Some great views, fun to look in to see if you can see any life. on to the Viewpoint, which is our last stop at Canyonlands. Our last stop in the Needles District brought us to the Big Spring Canyon Overlook. Here's the view into the canyon at the end of the scenic drive. Beautiful. It was a really nice spot, but we'd seen a lot of canyons in the other 4 national parks, and it didn't hold a candle to many of those. That ends our time in Canyonlands National Park, Island of the Sky, and Needles. Hopefully you enjoyed exploring with us. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we will see you on the next video.